Well, hello again, xenographers, and welcome to another episode. Today we're looking at some more of my favourite lenses from the film days that work really well on digital cameras. So, appearing in today's lineup are the Nikon Series E 50mm f1.8, the Industar 22 50mm f3.5, the Fed 10 50mm f3.5, the Olympus Zuiko 100mm f2.8, and finally the Olympus Zuiko 50mm f1.4. So we'll start with the Zuiko 50mm 1.4. This is one of my all-time favourite lenses. It's very well made and very compact, and it has an aperture range from f16 to f1.4. Close focusing distance is about 40 centimeters. Like all Zuiko lenses, it has fantastic colour rendition and a very soft and pleasing quality to the out of focus areas of a shot. It's sharp wide open, but it does have a little bit of vignetting in the corners. However, I don't mind that too much. It's a great portrait lens because of its ability to separate the subject from the background. It works really nicely in black and white. It's sometimes criticised for not being too sharp, but in this portrait of my dad you can see every hair on the top of his head, so I'm not too sure that's valid. It's really hard to get a bad shot with this lens, and it's probably the lens I've used the most over the past 6 months or so. It's not the cheapest lens of the bunch, but it's certainly not expensive for a high quality f1.4. You can pick up a good copy for between £50 and £70. It's a great general purpose lens for everyday use, and it takes pretty good pictures of cats as well. Because of that large aperture, it's really good in low light, although if you want to use 1.4 in bright light, you may find you need a neutral density filter. It's great for everyday use, it's really well made, and the softness of that bokeh is really quite something. Here's another Zuiko lens. This is the 100mm f2.8, and this one's a relative rarity in Zuiko world. Apertures run from f2.8 to f22, and it focuses from infinity all the way down to 1 meter. It's a lens I've stumbled on only recently, but it's a really nice piece of glass. It does have its foibles though. It's a low contrast lens in many situations, so if you're looking for high contrast images, best use a hood with this one. Because it's a 100mm lens, it really separates the subject from the background, and background bokeh is really soft and nice. It renders colours really nicely, and it's great for black and white too. This shot was taken on an overcast day, and you can see even there it's struggling with contrast. In this shot taken inside a church, the lens performs at its full potential. Check out those colours. And although sharpness isn't everything, this shot shows that this lens is capable of some really nice sharp images. And this shot of my cat Zorky shows this lens too is pretty good at photographing cats. Background blur is nothing short of beautiful, with close to circular bubbles. f2.8 means it's very good in low light, as this lady and gentleman will confirm. And did I mention it's really good at rendering colours? Check out the blue. The Industar 22 is a 1950s lens from Russia. It has an infinity lock, so push this button to release the focus ring. It's collapsible, but don't collapse it on your digital mirrorless because it will hit the sensor. The maximum aperture is a bit slow at f3.5. This lens is very sharp with great colour rendition. You won't get much in the way of softness in the background, but hey, it's a 1950s lens, and used within its limits, it gives some really striking images. It's quite contrasty, and for black and white gives a very good range of tones. I would be hard pressed to separate any of these images from a more modern lens. It really is a good performer. and in the right conditions it will even give you a little bit of swirl, which isn't everyone's cup of tea, but personally I rather like it. It takes great pictures of cameras and fruit too. This is the Fed 10 collapsible, the direct predecessor to the Industar 22. This one is uncoated and dates from the 1930s. Apertures run from f3.5 to f18 and they're a bit fiddly to change. The locking tab on this lens can cause problems with some digital adapters, so it may not lock on your camera. It's shorter than the Industar 22 and I've collapsed this lens into the body of my Sony A7 with no problems. An uncoated lens will give you a glow, and this lens has glow by the bucketful. It's not so sharp as the Industar 22 and, perhaps unsurprisingly, it's not as contrasty, but it does give you a lovely old school look to your black and white images. It gives a look that reminds me of old black and white movies. This clip, for example, wouldn't be out of place in a David Lean film. With no light source directly in front of the lens, it gives some fantastic images. And it does render colours very nicely. Although in this shot, it's struggling with light from the open sky. Images can be a bit soft, but I've found it's usually as sharp as I need. For best results, do keep the sun behind you. With the sun behind you, this lens can be very nice indeed. Here you can see the height difference between the Industar 22 and the Fed 10. It's quite significant, about 3 or 4 millimeters. This is why you should never collapse an Industar 22 when it's mounted on a digital body. In a side-by-side comparison, you can easily see the difference between the two Russian collapsibles. The uncoated Fed 10 has a lot less contrast and a lot less tonal range than the Industar, although which is better depends on the look you want to achieve. Personally, I like the Fed 10 very much. Here's a budget film lens from Nikon. This is the Series E f1.8 50mm. And while it's cheaper than a lot of Nikon lenses, some say it's at least as good, if not better, than the equivalent Nikon. It's almost all metal, it's very slim and light, with apertures from 1.8 to 22. The focusing ring is the lightest and smoothest of all these lenses. You can move it with gentle pressure from just one finger. And as for image quality, it's second to none. Closest focus is 60 centimeters, and it's a very sharp lens indeed. Background blur is very soft and smooth, and it renders both colour and black and white images really well. As far as bang for buck goes, this lens might just be the pick of the bunch, and you can pick up a good one for between 30 and 40 pounds. So there we are, 5 great lenses from the film days, each with its own unique look, each with its own character. If you want something different than the very sharp, very clean images that modern lenses will give you, these lenses are very strong contenders. Thanks for watching, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you next time for more Zenography.